Discovered I'm pregnant after impulsive revenge sex with the fiancé of the girl my ex cheated with, and now I'm uncertain about who to tell or what to do. I, 26F, just found out I'm pregnant after having revenge sex with the fiancé, 35 meters, of the girl, 30F, who my ex-boyfriend 32 meters, cheated on me with for 2 years. My ex and I met when I was 20 but were only friends until we started dating 2.5 years ago. I found out last year that my ex had been cheating on me for basically our whole relationship with a girl he met through a mutual friend. I broke things off after I found out and told the girl's fiancé about their affair. He ended up breaking off their engagement after he found out, and she seemed nonchalant about it until she realized that my ex's money wasn't actually his. My grandma left me a lot after she passed back in 2019, and my ex had been flaunting around the things I'd gifted him throughout our relationship to her, even going as far as to claim that the house and antique car my grandpa left for me in his will were my ex's. It's not something I'm proud of now that I think back to it, but I did allow my ex to walk all over me for the first month or two after I broke things off because I missed him so much. I gave him money and tried to make things work but would always get reprimanded by my parents and friends when I'd run to them crying after he ghosted me for her. I didn't officially give him up until the girl's ex-fiancé messaged me and told me that she was rubbing it in some of their old friends' faces about how pathetic I was and how desperate I was for my ex who didn't even give an F about me. I was really upset and asked him if he'd be willing to meet up with me because I knew that if I talked to my parents or friends about this, then they'd just lecture me even more. He agreed and the two of us met up at a random food cart place. We ended up spending most of the day just exploring and talking about how we were doing. He'd also confided in me about his relationship with his ex. They'd known each other for 10 years and they'd liked each other for most of the time they were friends, but he wasn't looking for a relationship because he was focusing on school. He had decided to give them a chance after she'd driven 12+ hours overnight to him because they'd talked on the phone, and he said he was feeling under the weather and was stressed from how vigorous his residency schedule was. She'd dropped everything to take care of him, helped clean his place, and made him some home-cooked meals after finding out that he was surviving off of vending machine snacks and instant coffee. He told me in detail about how he'd never felt so loved and cared for, how after she'd done that for him, he decided that she was the one, that if this wasn't love, then love wasn't real. Finding out that she was cheating for the last 2 years made everything click into place. She'd been pushing off getting married, telling all her friends that she was having doubts about him. He'd been trying to convince her into going to couples counseling when I broke the news to him that she was sleeping with my ex. I felt like a monster, hearing their love story and then realizing that they didn't get their happy ending because of my ex, and I messed with my head. We continued to talk from time to time, checking in on each other and meeting up for quick bite every now and then. We lost contact after the girl my ex cheated on me with somehow convinced him to take her back. I became slightly depressed after he cut me off, explaining to me that he was still in love with her and wanted to work things out, which meant a clean slate. I found out through some internet snooping that my ex cheated on her too, which was why she went back to her ex-fiancé. A few months passed and things went back to semi-normal. I started getting therapy and was about ready to put myself back out there to try out the dating pool again when around New Year's I got a call from the guy. He was crying and asking if I was available to talk. I of course said yes, and out of concern met up with him at his place. He broke down to me and told me about how he'd found her and my ex in his mom's guest bedroom during Christmas when she'd snuck him in for a quickie during his family's busy holiday party. All hell broke loose when he'd found them in the guest bedroom after spending 20 minutes looking for her everywhere. We drank a bit and ended up having sex. He apologized and told me that it was a mistake and he wasn't in his right mind, that he just wanted revenge sex, but it didn't make him feel any better after. I tried to message him platonically a few times after to see if he was alright, but he blocked me, so I dropped it and went on with my therapy and life. I went in last week to check with my doctor since I've been getting bad cramps and to get a new prescription refill for my birth control that I use to help with my PCOS. I had to do a usual test to double check for the possibility if I was pregnant and was very surprised when it came back positive. I have been sitting on this new knowledge and have been contemplating on if I should tell him, not tell him, or if I should even keep the pregnancy. My doctor did inform that since I am still in the earlier stages I am still at a big risk of having a miscarriage, so I don't know if I should even be worrying at all about all of this since there is a chance that I could lose it. And then it'd just seem like I was trying to grab at his attention or something, especially after he'd made it clear to me that he wasn't comfortable talking to me anymore after we slept together. I haven't told anyone and have been going crazy because I don't know what to do. Update 1. I'm not sure how Reddit works, but I will simply make a new post. A lot has happened since my original post. I know a lot of people were against this, but I went through with the pregnancy and I am forever thankful for my beautiful baby. I had originally planned to get an abortion, but I found myself unable to go through with the appointment. I am pro-choice and always will be. Just because I chose to keep my baby doesn't mean another woman/girl should be forced to keep a pregnancy they do not wish to continue. Everyone has a right to their own bodies. My parents were very upset with me and my whole family disowned me. I listened to what some of you said about letting the father know. We'll be referring to him as Dave. After many failed attempts to reach out to him I decided to go in person. Dave was not happy when I showed up at his place, but when I told him why, he agreed to talk with me. Dave let me know that he'd officially ended things with his ex and wanted to go no contact with me because I was another tie to his past with her, but he was willing to try and figure out a co-parenting plan with me if I agreed to a paternity test first. I of course felt a bit bad about the paternity test part but agreed to it since we both had only been acquaintances that bonded over our trauma. Everything was honestly easy cruising until I started to spot around the 26-week mark. My obgyn explained that while spotting is normal while pregnant, mine was heavier and my blood sugar/blood pressure also both worried them because of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia risk. After a few nights of Dave insisting on sleeping on my couch, I had him help me move some of my things to his place since he lived closer to the hospital. I am very thankful I decided to semi-move in with him when I did BC. I went into premature labor at 32 weeks. I am very thankful to have had Dave and his family as my support system. His mom would come and switch out with him at the hospital and advocated for me whenever I felt washed out or unheard. She helped me both emotionally and physically and stood by me. Dave's mom also helped me work through my emotions when all I wanted was my mom. She and my dad had gone no contact with me after I decided to keep and have my baby. Dave's mom was an absolute godsend also because she's a retired nurse. She started in OB, went to NICU and eventually later settled into lactation before retiring, and explained things to me when we found out that my baby had respiratory problems and had SUA, single umbilical artery, and that it could have been a factor into why I went into premature labor. She stayed with Dave and I so she could help me with pumping since I wasn't able to produce milk and encouraged me when I felt like such a failure for not being able to take care of my son when he needed me most. She drove me to and from the hospital while my son was in the NICU because I was healing and so mentally/physically exhausted. I really and truly believe that I didn't fall into deep postpartum depression because she held me and helped me with each step and was always so patient with me, even when I wasn't with myself. Dave's mom would constantly remind me that nothing was our fault and no one did anything wrong. It's just that everyone is faced with hardships in life and this was one we'd work together to get through. My son graduated from the NICU and came home a month after I did. Dave's mom visited us often and helped with him since Dave and I are first-time parents. Dave's dad joked that he felt like she and I had the baby together and he and Dave were both just background characters that make guest star appearances every now and then since Dave was working so much in order to build more PTO and his mom wouldn't bring his dad along when she'd come visit since she didn't want him to disturb me and the baby with his loudness. Dave's dad is hard of hearing and can sometimes be unaware of his volume so he took no offense to it. Dave's siblings and family members posted a lot about our son because he was the first grandchild and first baby in a long time. Dave's youngest cousin is 17, turning 18 this year. Somehow someone must have shared a photo or something, but pictures of us reached my family and my parents demanded I let them meet my son. Dave was supportive of whatever I chose to do and said he'd agree to them meeting him if that's what I wanted. After thinking about it for a few days I decided that I wanted to talk to my parents before I let them meet my son. When we met up to talk, my parents were offended that I didn't bring my son with us and left him with Dave's parents. They said some really hurtful things and then my dad started to question on when Dave was going to ask him for permission for us to get married since we didn't already have a shotgun wedding while I was pregnant. I was okay with them insulting me since I'd grown up with it and was used to it, but once my parents put their target on Dave and his family I became upset and decided it was time for us to leave. My parents did try to petition for legal visitation rights. Honestly, before this whole ordeal, I did not even know that grandparents' rights existed, but were denied because my son is still very young and because both Dave and I are very much on good terms, are living in the same household, and they couldn't find or prove that there was any danger to our son's well-being. My family did try to reach out to us and claim that we were horrible people for denying my parents their grandchild, but no one ever seemed to be able to make a peep when Dave's family would defend us and point out that my family had been the one to disown me and that no one cared to see if I was okay until after I had the baby and everything was handled. Dave's mom and my mom got in a verbal, almost physical, altercation after my mom had made false reports to CPS and called the police to do multiple welfare checks on us. My mom was given a warning by the police for harassing us after one specific incident where she threw a tantrum and caused a scene when the police found nothing wrong in the welfare check and refused to listen to her demands to have my son temporarily taken away from us and put in her custody for his safety. Dave and I currently have restraining orders pending against my parents and certain family members. One of the reasons I decided to update is because about 2 months ago a friend of Dave's asked him out to have some drinks and they ran into his ex-fiancé who later messaged him to tell him that she regretted the way they ended and how she was very hurt when she heard that we had a baby together, especially with it being so soon after their relationship. Dave wouldn't talk to me about how he felt, and when I asked him he just brushed me off or switched the conversation onto a topic about our son that he knew would distract me. I noticed Dave pulling away from me and how our relationship became a bit awkward and strained after their run-in and her message because I know he still has feelings for her and I am afraid that he might feel trapped with me and our son. I also noticed that the drama with my family has made Dave and his family less patient with me and my son. During Mother's Day I overheard a few of his family members make comments to Dave about me being at their family barbecue since I was just my son's mom and not really part of the family. Dave just shrugged and said I didn't have anyone else to spend the day with. With how tense things have been, I have been thinking about moving out and back into my place. I stayed with Dave at his place after I gave birth, but now that our son is slightly older and I am healed, I want to give Dave back some space so that he can start dating again if he wants to and to give him back some more bachelor time when I have our son. I want to find a way to approach me moving out and us making a co-parenting plan without making things more awkward or possibly ruining the relationship I have with Dave and his parents. I don't want them to feel like I'm not grateful or anything, but I do want to go back to work and get my life back on track so that I can provide my portion of needs for my son and not want to depend on his family for more than appropriate. I've been trying my best to not check my phone or Reddit since I'm honestly a little overwhelmed right now. I will let you all know that I did talk to Dave and he was against me moving out. He also wasn't willing to talk about the situation, how he's been acting after running into his ex, and said I was bringing up something that didn't matter since we were talking about me wanting to move out. I haven't said anything about what I heard during Mother's Day, and I don't think I'm going to mention it since I feel really bad that it was meant to be a private conversation, so I don't think anyone meant anything bad. During our conversation, Dave let me know that maybe I'm just overthinking or overreacting and that I shouldn't make big decisions like moving out. He also talked about how because our son is a preemie, he'd prefer if one of us was a stay-at-home parent until he turned 2 to 3 years old so he could catch up with his peers, and then once he started pre-K then we could go back to work again. But I feel like he's been trying to avoid me since the conversation, but I could also be overthinking like he said. But after reading someone comments, I do feel like I'm valid in the way I feel, but I'm also not sure anymore. I want to do what's best for my son. I know people already think I'm so dumb and that I shouldn't have had him, but I am trying to be better for my son. I feel like he's my only family left and I really want to try to do what's best for him. Update 2. I don't think anyone really cares for this update, but I'm going to put it here for anyone who may want to know. After the last time I posted, things were a bit awkward and tense between Dave and I for a few weeks until Father's Day. I honestly didn't feel comfortable going to his aunt's house for their family gathering because of the conversation I'd overheard during Mother's Day, but I went because it was Dave's first Father's Day after we'd had our son the previous year. I initially didn't want to bring up the topic because it was supposed to be a good day, but Dave was actually the one who brought up the topic after we'd returned from his aunt's house. Dave confessed about the Mother's Day conversation with his cousins and said they grilled him during Father's Day as well because he brought me with him to their aunt's house. Dave apologized for making me worry and for not standing up for me when his family said things about me behind my back, but told me that he honestly didn't want me to move out and for us to split our son's custody, especially because it was comforting to know that he was going to be coming home to the both of us after spending a long day at work. I told him I didn't want to ruin the day and we could talk about things the next day, but Dave was adamant on us clearing the air because he was tired of how uncomfortable things were between us. Ironically, Dave told me he was afraid of me feeling trapped with him, especially after seeing how traumatizing it was for me to go into premature labor, deal with our son in the NICU / being separated from him, and me healing postpartum. Dave also said he felt worse about everything after seeing how my family treated me and then how some members of his own family held it against me. He told me that although he himself didn't mean to do this in any way, he felt like I was trapped and isolated with only him for me to depend on. He made sure to make it crystal clear that while he would want for us to try and work towards a relationship to see where things go, he also doesn't want me to feel pressured or that I have to stay with him if I am not happy / don't want to. He agreed that he would rather us be on good terms for our son's sake, and if that means us having a friendship-like relationship with mutual respect for one another, then he is okay with it as well. We talked for a while about everything and cleared the air of any questions. Dave let me know that he genuinely didn't feel anything for his ex-fiancé and that the reason for him becoming distant had nothing to do with me and was because he'd had a life crisis when he thought about how different his life was compared to how he'd wanted and thought it would be like. Dave and I came to an understanding that my son and I would continue to stay with Dave and I would get a part-time job to slowly ease my way back into working. Things were rocky and a little odd to navigate at first, but Dave's parents helped us a lot with our son when I started job hunting and got a part-time position working at a local bank branch nearby Dave's place. Dave and I slowly started to explore our relationship to see where things would go between us. It was weird for the both of us because of how we'd met and started out, but within 3-4 months things got much better. I moved my things from our son's room into Dave's. Our son had a hard time initially when Dave and I began to show more affection, hugging and quick innocent kisses with one another because he had a bit of jealousy at how close we were since he was used to us only showering our affections onto him and not each other, but he's gotten used to it now. Dave's family has said in a playful joking manner that we should give our son a sibling to play and grow up with since no one else from Dave's family has kids, but I try to avoid the conversation of when we'll have more kids. I took some of your advice and I joined Mommy and Me groups so my son does have some playmates his age, but I do sometimes find myself feeling guilty for how lonely he may be when it's just him and us at home. This past Valentine's, while in the heat of the moment, Dave did make a few comments about wanting to get me pregnant again, but when I mentioned and clarified with him afterwards he said it was just him being really into it at the moment. Dave and I have previously had a conversation and agreed that because of my PCOS and how unbalanced my hormones are, I wouldn't go back onto birth control because of how I've been feeling much better after the birth of our son, so we are using the calendar method as contraceptive for my end. But I have tried asking Dave if he'd be willing to use condoms and he's made it clear that he doesn't like them and it's completely off the table for him because he doesn't like the feeling of being constricted in latex. I know he's clean and so am I, but we've had 2 previous pregnancy scares. There are times when Dave forgets to pull out, but he's assured me that if we get pregnant again then it wouldn't change anything except that we'd have another baby and I might have to quit my job and stay home again, but I know I'm not ready for that yet. Our son is only just turning 2 later this year and it's already so hard juggling just one child with our schedules and jobs. I don't know how we'd manage with 2 kids. Dave and I are in a wonderful place right now in our life and relationship, so I don't want to keep bringing up contraceptives or anything because I don't want to ruin the peace. I've been contemplating possibly going back onto the pill or looking into other options I could use, but I'm scared to put my body through a whirlwind of hormones and put a toll on my mental health again. If anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. Thank you all so much for your support and kind words. My life has truly changed for the better and I am forever grateful and thankful to every one of you for your words of advice and wisdom. Update 3. It's been a few months since my last update, and I wanted to share some recent developments in our lives. Dave and I have been navigating our relationship and parenting journey together, but we've hit a rough patch lately. Last month, Dave's ex-fiancé reached out to him again. She apologized for her past behavior and expressed interest in rekindling their friendship. At first, Dave was hesitant, but he eventually agreed to meet her for coffee. He assured me it was just to get closure, but I couldn't help feeling uneasy about the situation. The day of their meeting, I was a nervous wreck. I tried to keep myself busy with our son, but my mind kept wandering to Dave and his ex. When he came home that evening, he seemed distant and lost in thought. It took a few days before he finally opened up to me about what happened. Apparently, his ex had realized the mistake she made in cheating on him and wanted to explore the possibility of getting back together. Dave admitted that seeing her stirred up old feelings, but he also felt conflicted because of our family and the life we've built together. I was devastated. The thought of losing Dave and breaking up our family was overwhelming. We had a long, emotional conversation that night, during which Dave reassured me that he wasn't going to leave us. However, he confessed that he needed time to sort out his feelings. For the next couple of weeks, things were tense between us. Dave spent more time at work, and when he was home, he was often distracted and withdrawn. I tried my best to give him space, but it was hard not to feel like our relationship was slipping away. To make matters worse, I started feeling nauseous and tired all the time. At first, I chalked it up to stress, but after a few weeks, I realized my period was late. With shaking hands, I took a pregnancy test, and to my shock, it came back positive. I was torn between excitement and fear. On one hand, I loved the idea of giving our son a sibling, but on the other, I was terrified of how this news would affect Dave and our already fragile relationship. For days, I agonized over how to tell him. Finally, one evening after putting our son to bed, I gathered my courage and sat Dave down. His reaction was not what I expected. Instead of being upset or overwhelmed, he broke down in tears and hugged me tightly. Through his sobs, Dave confessed that he had been struggling with guilt over his conflicted feelings about his ex. He said that this pregnancy news made him realize how much he loved our family and how he couldn't imagine his life without us. The next day, Dave called his ex and told her that while he appreciated her apology, he was committed to our family and couldn't pursue any kind of relationship with her. He also decided to start seeing a therapist to work through his unresolved feelings and to strengthen our relationship. Now, we're cautiously optimistic about the future. We've started going to couples counseling to improve our communication and work through our issues. Dave has been more attentive and involved with our son, and he's excited about the new baby. However, I can't help but worry about what the future holds. Will Dave's feelings for his ex resurface? Can we handle the stress of a new baby while still working on our relationship? Only time will tell, but for now, we're taking it one day at a time and focusing on our growing family. Update 4. It's been almost a year since my last update, and so much has happened that I barely know where to begin. Our second baby, a beautiful little girl, was born healthy at 38 weeks, a completely different experience from my first pregnancy. Dave was by my side the entire time, and seeing him hold our daughter for the first time made all the struggles we'd been through worth it. The first few months with two little ones were absolute chaos. Our son, now 3, had a difficult time adjusting to not being the center of attention anymore. He would act out by throwing tantrums whenever Dave or I would hold the baby, and bedtime became a nightmare. Dave's mom was a lifesaver during this period, coming over several times a week to help with our son while we tended to the baby. Dave and I continued our couples therapy, which helped us navigate the new challenges of having 2 children. Our therapist suggested that Dave spend dedicated one-on-one time with our son to help with the transition, which has worked wonders. They now have a special boys' day every Saturday morning where they go to the park or the children's museum together. About 6 months after our daughter was born, Dave was offered a promotion at work, one that would mean more money but also more hours and some travel. We had long discussions about whether he should take it, especially given how stretched thin we already were. In the end, we decided that the financial benefits outweighed the drawbacks, and Dave accepted the position. The first business trip Dave took was only supposed to be for 3 days, but a snowstorm delayed his return by an additional 2. I was completely overwhelmed trying to manage both kids on my own, and by the time Dave got home, I was an emotional wreck. We had our first major fight since before our daughter was born, with me accusing him of prioritizing his career over our family and him feeling unappreciated for working so hard to provide for us. After we both calmed down, we realized we needed to make some changes. Dave spoke with his boss about limiting his travel to no more than once a month, and I reached out to a local mother's helper, a high school student who comes over a few afternoons a week to play with our son while I take care of the baby or catch up on housework. Just when things were starting to feel manageable again, Dave came home one evening looking pale and shaken. He sat me down and told me that he had run into his ex-fiancée at a coffee shop near his office. She was pregnant and engaged to someone new. Dave admitted that seeing her happy and moved on stirred up some unexpected feelings, not jealousy or regret, but a sense of closure he hadn't realized he still needed. That night, after the kids were asleep, Dave proposed to me. Not with a grand gesture or an expensive ring, but with tears in his eyes and words that came straight from his heart. He told me that seeing his ex made him realize how grateful he was that things hadn't worked out with her, because it led him to me and our beautiful family. He said he wanted to make it official, not because we needed a piece of paper to validate our relationship, but because he wanted the world to know that he had chosen me, completely and without reservation. I said yes, of course. We're planning a small ceremony for next spring, nothing fancy, just our children, Dave's family, and the few friends who have supported us through everything. Last week, I received a letter from my mother. It was the first contact I'd had with my family since the restraining order. She wrote that my father had suffered a heart attack and, while he was recovering, it had made them both reevaluate their priorities. She apologized for how they had treated me and asked if there was any possibility of reconciliation, especially now that they had 2 grandchildren they'd never met. I haven't responded yet. Part of me wants to give them another chance, especially for my children's sake, but I'm also terrified of letting them back into our lives only to have them hurt us again. Dave says he'll support whatever decision I make, but I can tell he's wary. For now, I'm focusing on the good things, our healthy children, our upcoming wedding, and the home we've built together. Sometimes I still can't believe how my life has turned out. What started as a misguided attempt at revenge has somehow given me everything I never knew I wanted. It hasn't been easy, and I know we still have challenges ahead, but for the first time in my life, I truly believe that we're going to be okay.